What's up, y'all? Brandon with BC Talks here. 2023 was quite the year for comic book movies. Some might say it was the worst year for comic book movies. I don't think that personally. I'm a little bit higher on a lot of these movies than a lot of the critics are. But personally, even then, I still don't think it's the worst year. It was definitely a down year, though. The writing wasn't as great, the quality wasn't as great, the production of a lot of them wasn't as great. But I think that we are going to get because of this year, we're going to get better quality comic book movies in the future. Next year, there's not a lot of comic book movies that are coming out because of the strikes. They movies that were supposed to come out later this year or early next year were pushed to 2025. So next year, there's really not that many big comic book movies coming out other than like Deadpool 3. That's probably the biggest one that's coming out in 2024. A lot of the 2024 releases got pushed to 2025. So in 2025, we're going to be seeing movies like Superman Legacy, the first official movie of the new DCU by James Gunn. We're going to be seeing the second Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. We're supposed to be getting Captain America Brave New World. We're supposed to be getting the Thunderbolts. The Blade movie finally after many rewrites and different directors and scripts, and also the Fantastic Four movie we're supposed to be getting in 2025 too. Although we'll see about that one. But yeah, so there's going to be a little bit of a lull next year, but I think it's a good thing because it's going to give the writers and the production teams more time to really hone in and get the best out of their scripts. Especially when compared to the down year that was this year. I think we kind of all need a year off, and then we can gear back up for 2025 to get back into those good movies. But getting back to this year, I am going to be ranking the 9 comic book movies that came out in 2023. Now, movies that aren't going to be on this list are movies like Godzilla. Godzilla is a has been in the comics before, but Godzilla did not originate in the comics, so that's not going to be on this list. Although I will say that Godzilla minus one is in my top 3 of all the movies I've seen this year, and I've seen almost 50 movies in the theaters. And Godzilla minus one, if you haven't seen it, definitely go see it before it gets out of theaters because it's definitely one that deserves to be watched on the big screen. It's an incredible movie, but unfortunately, it's not going to be on this list because even though Godzilla's been in lots of comics, Godzilla didn't originate in the comics, so Godzilla won't be on this list. Another one is John Wick 4. That's another one that's high on my list. I have that one in my top 10, maybe even my top 5. I'd have to go back and look at it. But John Wick, even though he's essentially a superhero now, the way that the movies are, especially if you've seen John Wick 4, John Wick's not going to be on the list. Dungeons and Dragons, that was a great one that came out this year. That's a game though, not a comic book. So even though there have been Dungeons and Dragons based comic books and stories in the comics based on Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeons and Dragons movie won't be on this list either because that originated as a game. Just the comic book movies this year, which there were 9. And we are going to go in order of release date. So the first movie up on the chopping block is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This movie released February 17th, 2023. It was directed by Peyton Reed, who directed the previous 2 Ant-Man movies. The movie made about $476 million worldwide on a $200 million budget. So if you do the Hollywood accounting, what you do is you multiply the production budget times 2 for the marketing. So the marketing is equal to the production budget. So you multiply it by 2 to get the total cost of the movie. So that would be 400 million. So that means that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania either broke even or just barely made money. So not a great start for Marvel in 2023. And that's not usually how their movies go. Even the previous year, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, even though it wasn't as well received, it still made a decent amount of money, as well as Thor Ragnarok. Both those movies still made a decent amount of money, even though they weren't as well received. So this was the first kind of dud going into the year for the MCU. And now for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I have it at a D tier. It is D tier for me, but it's a high D tier. I could put it low C tier. I have to go watch it again, and maybe if I watch it again, I might put it at low C tier. But right now, it's at a high D tier for me. There was an insane amount of hype for this movie going in, especially because it was the beginning of the new year. This was going to be, the beginning, the start of the new arc of this phase, with the Kang the Conqueror, the big bad for the next phases. Played by Jonathan Majors, of course, who was recently fired by Marvel after the verdict came out from his court case. But we were going in with an insane amount of hype because coming off of Loki season one, that little bit that we got at Jonathan Majors as Kang was incredible. So people were really excited to see him play Kang. And then after everything that happened with the events of the Multiverse of Madness, we were really interested to see how they were going to go into the next phase. And Jonathan Majors was not the problem with this movie. Jonathan Majors was probably the best part of this movie. Not probably, he was the best part of the movie, to be honest. I really enjoyed the way that he played Kang the Conqueror. I kind of wish, though, that he had played a little bit more with the time aspect, of himself. One of the themes that they kind of touched on at the beginning of the movie, but didn't really explore in depth, was that because Ant-Man was in the quantum realm, he because he was trapped there, and then when he came out at Endgame, he lost all that time with Cassie, his daughter. So it was at the beginning of the movie, they kind of touch on that where it's kind of awkward because he doesn't really know her because he missed 5 years with his daughter. So I really wish that Kang had you know, kind of played into that. Like, I can give you time with your daughter back. Kind of tried to manipulate Scott to work for him. I really wish they had done that. I also wish that they had sacrificed somebody at the end of the movie. I know that Ant-Man was already trapped, so maybe you don't trap him, but somebody should have got trapped in the quantum realm, trying to sacrifice to get the rest of them over. Honestly, I would have made it Ant-Man, even though he's already been trapped before. Maybe he gets trapped again. Maybe it's just a trope. Ant-Man gets trapped a lot. But somebody needed to sacrifice. At the end of the movie, they all kind of escaped, and then they're all just chilling at the end of doing a party, and it's like it's over. There was not really any consequence to the movie. Like, somebody should have got trapped in the quantum realm, and then later on, maybe Cassie, who is probably going to join the Young Avengers team that Kamala Khan is forming, she joins the Young Avengers, and the Young Avengers go save Ant Man. Maybe that would be a good thing to set up. But yeah, none of that happened. There's also all the Modoc memes. Everybody hated Modoc. Now, Modoc is kind of a meme character in the first place. I don't know how you would do him good in live action anyway. I personally didn't have that much of a problem with Modoc, other than his weird tiny little butt that they show at the end. But Modoc. A lot of people had a problem with that. Obviously, the writing in this was not as great. You don't really care for the tertiary characters, um, like like the everybody that was in the village, um, and Katie O'Brien's character. Katie O'Brien's a really good actor, and so she kind of feels wasted as that warrior princess of the village. There was also the weird stuff with Michelle Pfeiffer and Bill Murray's character. Bill Murray's character didn't need to be in this movie. There was no point. But I did like Michael Douglas, who plays who plays Hank Pym. I thought he did a good job in the limited time that he had. There's also everybody that had a problem with Kang the Conqueror getting defeated by ants. They did give a reason for it, but even though they did give a reason for it, it was still kind of dumb to have him just get defeated in the way he did. Maybe have them build some kind of machine that defeats him or traps him, so it's not just like all the ants coming upon him and whatnot. But yeah, and then there's that ending. Personally, I think the ending. I think that they escape the quantum realm, but they're in a different universe than the original MCU universe. That's what I think. It'd be interesting if they were actually in the Fox universe, and then we see them meet up with Monica, and they help Monica to get back to the original universe. That would be interesting. I think that they should do that. Have them kind of meet up if they are in a different universe. But you know, I'll say all that to say that yeah, Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the writing was not as good. Um, this, a lot of the decisions motivations from the characters weren't that great. A lot of people also had a problem with Catherine Newton's portrayal of Cassie Lang. I didn't think it was that bad. It was a little wooden at times, but what are you gonna do? She's working with what she was written. I think she'll do a lot better in the future with some better writing. But yeah, that's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I have at a D tier. Next up, we have Shazam: Fury of the Gods. This movie released March 17th, 2023. It was directed by David F. Sandberg, and the movie made $133 million on a $125 million budget. So that is atrocious. The movie did not make any money. Very likely lost them lots of money when you include the marketing budget. So yeah, not great financially. But as for its rank, I will put it C tier. It is C tier for me. Now it's low C tier, but I don't think it's as bad as Quantum Mania. Honestly, the biggest problem with this movie to me, other than some of the writing, a big overarching issue this year was the writing of the movies. But other than the writing, one of the big issues of the movie for me was Zachary Levi, the way he played Shazam. I really like Asher Angel as Billy Batson, the kid counterpart to Shazam. But in the first movie, which I love the first Shazam is one of my favorite DCEU movies. I'm going to be doing a ranking of the DCEU soon, because obviously, the DCEU has died finally with the release of Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom. That was the last DCEU movie, and now we're moving into James Gunn's DCU. So, but one of my favorite DCEU movies was Shazam, the first one, and I really actually enjoyed how Zachary Levi played the Shazam character, because it really felt like it was Billy Batson. It really felt like it was Asher Angel's Billy Batson in the body of an adult. I thought they both played the character really well. Now, with the problem in Shazam 2 is that Zachary Levi is still playing a 12-year-old boy in the body of a man, but Asher Angel, rightfully so because he's grown up, he's about to go to college in the movie. Asher Angel is playing Billy Batson as a 17-year-old who's about to go to college. But then when he turns into Shazam, Zachary Levi Shazam, he's still acting like the 12-year-old kid from the first movie. So it was very jarring when he would switch to Shazam. I really love Asher Angel as Billy Batson. He's one of the actors that I want them to port from the DCEU into the new DCU. I really hope he gets a job in the DCEU. I think he would do a great job, because he's a really good actor, in my opinion. I really liked Asher Angel in this movie. He was probably my favorite in this movie, and he was really great in the first movie as well. I also thought that Freddy, well, the actor that plays Freddy, did a really great job as well. In this movie, he had a lot more to do than the first movie. So those two I didn't have a problem with. It was really Zachary Levi playing a kid when he's supposed to be a 17-year-old now was the problem. He needed to feel a little bit more mature as Shazam in this movie. But yeah, the script, like I said, the writing isn't as tight, as it should be. But the story I thought was fun. That's going to be kind of a, and I know people hate that, especially critics, when you say, well, the movie was fun even though the writing wasn't great. People hate that, but I think I don't know, it just was. Like, I enjoyed watching the movie, even though I recognize that the movie is not that great. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of these movies. Um, the yeah, so Shazam: Fury of the Gods, I have at a C tier. I Helen Mirren as the villain. Um, I It was okay. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst villain I've seen. And then we got, of course, that Gal Gadot Wonder Woman cameo at the end there. Also, Djimon Hounsou's the Wizard character. I liked him as well. He had a lot more to do, or a little bit more to do in this movie than he did in the first one. He had some funny scenes as well. So yeah, overall, I would give Shazam: Fury of the Gods, put it in the C tier. So 2023 did not start off great for comic book movies, but this next movie did get them back on track. It is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was released May 5th of 2023. of course, was directed by James Gunn, who directed the previous two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and it was his last Marvel movie, as he'll now be going over to Warner Brothers to take over the new DC studios and start the new DC universe over there. But this movie made $845 million on a $250 million budget, so it did make Marvel back some of that money that they either lost or barely made with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And now for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the last iteration of the James Gunn trilogy, I will put it in the S tier. Now for me, it's a lower S tier, but it is an S tier movie for me. Um, I thought that Chiwetel Ejiofor as the High Evolutionary was a standout in this movie. He was a really great villain. A lot of people kind of had the problem with him screaming a lot, but he was unhinged. He was clearly not mentally stable, and so that's was part of his character. To me, the screaming, and I didn't have a problem. I didn't think it was excessive. I thought he screamed when he needed to, and he was menacing and kind of foreboding and quiet when he needed to as well. Um, Rocket Raccoon, obviously, this story revolved around him, so he was kind of a standout in the movie as well. Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon. I'm gonna miss the way that James Gunn. It's gonna be interesting to see how the Guardians are written now that James Gunn is gone. Honestly, I mean, I love these characters, but they're James Gunn's characters, so I don't know how they're gonna move on with the characters not written by James Gunn. That's gonna be interesting to see. But Rocket Raccoon, his story was heartbreaking. You really felt for him. It was gripping. Very, very well written. This movie. This one of probably. Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, I honestly I don't know though, because the first Guardians of the Galaxy is really good. This is up there for me as one of James Gunn's most well written movies. It's up there. Like it'd be probably be in the top three. But and it feels like a lot of the more tertiary Guardians had a bit of wrap ups to their arc as well. Karen Gillan as Nebula. I felt like we kind of got a bow on her arc. Even Pom Clementif as Mantis and Dave Batista as Drax. They had a lot more to do and kind of with their character arcs as well. And then obviously, in addition to this being a story of revolving around Rocket, the story also revolved around Peter Quill and Gamora, kind of how their relationship is going now because this is a different Gamora. The original Gamora died. This is a Gamora from another timeline. So she doesn't have any of the past at all with Peter Quill, even though Peter remembers everything. So it was really interesting to see them work that dynamic. I thought they did a great job with that. Again, the writing was really good. The I thought that there was jokes when there needed to be, like I said, but not too many. Um, it was heartbreaking. It was heartfelt. Very well shot and acted. The sets were great. It didn't even those Guardians of the Galaxy and they're in space. A lot of the times these Disney and Marvel movies you can feel like they're on the volume, which is that set that they have, the LED set with the lights. They used the volume in the first Batman movie as well, which I thought they used it well there. It didn't feel like they were on the volume, but a lot of Marvel and Star Wars movies, Star Wars especially, like the last season of past season of the Mandalorian season 3, you could tell that they were using a lot of the volume. I don't know how much of the volume they use in this movie, probably a decent amount because it's space. Like Quantum Mania, for example, I could feel the volume, but you don't really feel the volume as much in this one. So props to them on that. But yeah, like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy for me is in the lower S tier. Next up, we have what I consider to be the greatest comic book movie released this year and one of the top comic book movies released in a while. That would be Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. Now, this movie released June 2nd, 2023. It was directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Justin K. Thompson, and Kemp Powers, and it made $690 million on a $100 million budget. So it made quite a bit of money for Sony Animation Studios. And Spider Man Across the Spider Verse, obviously, I already told you I was one of what I consider to be one of the greatest comic book movies this year and in a while. So, of course, it is going to be S tier for me and it's going to be, of course, ahead of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, just everything worked with this movie. The cinematography, the music, the soundtrack, the score, the animation. This is on point. One of the original things that endeared the first Across the Spider Verse movie to people was the animation, and the animation is just hitting on all points in this movie. The way that they used different frame rates for Spider Punk in his animation, the different color gradients and palettes that they use when Gwen is with her dad, and that one scene was crazy. Spider-Man India, I love the way they animated him as well, and all the different Spider-Man characters that you get at the end there. In that that are chasing Miles Morales. Miles Morales obviously is animated great. It's just a really great movie. I don't think I have to go on too much. I think that most people would agree that this is probably the best comic book movie released this year. And if you watched it, you know why. I saw it, I think twice, maybe three times. I definitely saw it twice. I don't remember if I saw it a third time in theaters, but yeah, and I still listen to the soundtrack by Metro Boomin. It's just a great soundtrack, great music. The score was great. It's a heartfelt story, and of course, it's part one. The second part is gonna supposed to be coming out. It was supposed to be coming out next year, but it was pushed to indefinitely, so we don't know when it's gonna come out. Now, I'd assume it's gonna come out in 2025 or 2026 now. But so that's unfortunate. But that was a result of the strikes and whatnot. But yeah, just Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. Can't sing its praises enough. I really don't have to go into that much detail on this one. I think y'all know that this is one of the better comic book movies we've had in a while, and definitely the best one that we got this year. And now we go from the greatest comic book movie of the year to what many consider to be the worst comic book movie of the year, if not definitely the most controversial comic book movie of the year. That would be The Flash. This movie, there's so much history with this movie. It was announced like 11 years ago. They announced it after the first season, after the couple episodes of the first season of the Flash TV show with Grant Gustin. And the Flash TV show ended before this movie came out. It was announced like, what was it, like 9 or 11 years ago, something like that. All almost or over a decade ago, they announced this movie. It went through so many rewrites, and then there was all the Ezra Miller, all the legal trouble that he got into, all of his antics that he was getting into in illegal activities, and then a lot of people were mad because they kept him on, but the movie was already filmed and shot, and they did all the movie was done by the time anything major came out about Ezra Miller, so they just had to put the movie out just to make something. Um, so yeah, it was. There's this movie has a very checkered past. The Flash released June 16th of this year, 2023. It was directed by Andy Muschietti, which is kind of concerning because Andy Muschietti is directing the new Batman movie, the Brave and the Bold movie, which is going to be the first Batman movie in James Gunn's DCU. With it's going to have Damian Wayne in it. So that's kind of concerning. But the Andy Muschietti is a good director. I think this one just had so many extenuating circumstances. It kind of got out of control. But the Flash made 270 million on a which is kind of disputed. Some people say it was 220. Then there was a report that came out that it was almost $300 million budget. But either way, this movie did not make any money at all. It lost lots of money. And now, even though it is very widely panned, for me, y'all are not going to like this probably. I have The Flash at a low B tier. Yes. Now, honestly, I think that of the DCEU movies that released this year, I think that the writing was not as bad as some of the other ones. I thought it was more well written than Shazam. It was more well written than Aquaman. Probably not more well written than Blue Beetle, but Blue Beetle was kind of rushed a little bit, and it was supposed to be an HBO movie, HBO Max movie. But getting back to the Flash, yeah, I honestly I enjoyed this movie. I saw it twice as well. um, I thought that for all of Ezra Miller's extenuating circumstances, as far as Ezra Miller's portrayal of the Flash in this movie, I thought it was the best that he's done. Since in the entire DCU, this is his best performance of the Flash, and performing against himself the way that he did. He because there was two Flashes. It was I thought that was really great. That's an underrated part of this movie that a lot of people kind of gloss over how natural it was him playing two different characters. They're the same character, they're different people. And then also, I really enjoyed Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. Sasha Calle's Supergirl. It's unfortunate that it seems like we're not going to get her as the Supergirl in the DCU, which is unfortunate because I thought she did a really great job as Supergirl. Her version of Supergirl was really great. So it's unfortunate that we're not going to get her back. But yeah, like I said, the writing wasn't really a problem to me in this movie. Really, I didn't have an issue with the movie that much. I thought that the third act, which happens in a lot of comic book movies, the third act was a little weak compared to the first couple acts of the movie. But yeah, overall, for me, The Flash is a low B tier, even though I know that a lot of people hate it, and it's one of the worst. A lot of people say it's their worst comic book movie that was released this year. I don't think that way. But yeah, this you can let me know down in the comments. Did you completely hate The Flash and thought it was the worst movie of the year, or did you actually have fun with it like I did? I also thought the ending with his mom, one of the things that makes Barry tick, if you're a DC fan like me, you know that Barry, his mom and his dad were really important to him. That relationship that he has with his dad, and then also, his mom dying. The whole Flashpoint thing happened because he tried to go back in time and save his mom. So, that moment that they share at the end of the movie, it brought me to tears, to be honest, because it was really great. But yeah, let me know down in the comments how you felt about The Flash. Despite how I feel about The Flash, it was critically panned. People hated it when it released, and it seemed like we were back on the downslope for comic book movies after Guardians of the Galaxy and Across the Spider Verse, which were two really good ones. That was kind of a disappointing moment for comic book movies, but then out of nowhere came this next movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. It released August 2nd of 2023, directed by Jeff Rowe and obviously produced by Seth Rogen, who produces a lot of awesome comic book movie content like Invincible and The Boys on Amazon. And it made 180 million on a $70 million budget. Now this was in the throes. This was right, in the middle of the strike. So that kind of affected the box office a little bit. I think if it had come out earlier in the year, it probably would have made a lot more money, or maybe later when the strike was over. But for me, this I was not expecting this movie to be as good as it was. I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem at an S tier, and I have it after Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's just a really fun, really good movie, and the kids that play the mutants, they are actually teenagers, and they sound like teenagers. They act like teenagers. They also have them recording together so they could play off of each other. So a lot of the dialogue in the movie, it feels natural the way that they talk to each other because they're all recording together in the same booth. Um, and looking at a lot of clips came out of them recording together. It's just really fun to see them recording together. That's one thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, this movie was fun," but this is probably one of the most fun comic book movies of the year. If you haven't seen it, I really also like Ice Cube as Superfly, the villain. He was really great. All of the tertiary mutant characters, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For me, I was never the biggest fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know. I just never got into them. But I never read the comics. I never got into. I watched them obviously a little bit, but I don't know. I just never got into them. It's one of the ones I never got into. But I really enjoyed. how they were portrayed in this movie. I think this is their best portrayal in a long, long time. If definitely if you haven't seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, definitely search it out. I don't know where you would find it, but yeah, it's just a really fun um, movie, and it just feels like it's energetic. There's a lot of energy in this movie. It's hard to explain it if you haven't seen it, but yeah, definitely go watch that movie. Like I said, I have it at the low S tier. Now, a couple weeks after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, we got this next movie, which is Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle released August 18th of 2023. It was directed by Angel Manuel Soto, and it made $129 million on a $104 million budget. So it was another one that went down the toilet for DC. Similar numbers to The Flash, but it wasn't supposed to be as big of a movie as The Flash. And The Flash is an established character; everybody knows The Flash. But for Blue Beetle, nobody really knows Blue Beetle unless you're a diehard DC fan. I really like Blue Beetle. I like the character. I have it. I own his first appearance as Blue Beetle in the comics. I watched the Justice League or the Young Justice animated series religiously. So he has a pretty decent role in that movie or in that series. So I really like his portrayal in that series. There's a whole arc with the Beatles in that series that was probably one of the better arcs in the series. Um, so yeah, I'm a big fan of Jaime Reyes as Blue Beetle, and I really like the way that he was portrayed by Jolo Mediterranean in the movie. Now, Jolo Mediterranean is going to be playing Blue Beetle in the new DCU. According to James Gunn, this Blue Beetle movie is not a DCEU movie, or sorry, a DCU movie, but the character Blue Beetle is going to be the Blue Beetle, the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle in the DCU. So we'll see how that works. It sounds a little confusing, but he's doing that with a couple of the characters, like Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, Peacemaker, John Cena's Peacemaker is going to be in it as well. So there's a few characters he's doing that with, where they're coming over. Now, unlike the Flash, which is an established, well-known character, Blue Beetle is not that many people know him. Like I said, unless you're a diehard DC fan. So that's kind of been a little bit of an excuse for why it didn't make as much money as it should have. And also, it was originally just going to be a straight to HBO Max movie, but they kind of then expanded it to be a wide release, theatrical release. And like I said, it's a fun movie. I really enjoy the movie. I know like I said before, a lot of people say that with comic book movies. Oh, it was fun, even though it wasn't that great. I thought it was good. I thought the writing was, at least as far as movies this year went, the writing was good. And the villain, played by Susan Sarandon, who is Ted Kord's sister in the movie, who, of course, Ted Kord, he died. He was the original Blue Beetle. But yeah, she was kind of like a mustache twirling whatever villain. But the and then she had like her little lackey guy who I forget his name, but he had the other suit to rival the Blue Beetle suit. But yeah, it was that part of the movie wasn't that great, but what was good was the stuff with his family. I really enjoyed that, and also um Jenny Cord as well, his daughter, Ted Kord's daughter. I really like their relationship as well. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of good in this movie, but I think that the third act and then the stuff with the villain kind of brings it down a little bit for me. But yeah, I have it in that high B tier. Next up, we have another polarizing comic book movie. This time it is The Marvels. The Marvels released November 10th of 2023. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, and it made $205 million on a $174 million budget. So it's another one that went down the toilet for Marvel. And now it was a polarizing movie. I have it at a C tier, a high C tier for me. I had fun with the movie, which, again, people hate when you say I had fun with this movie, even when there's problems with it. But I do recognize that there are problems with the movie, but still, it was a fun movie to me. I think it's one of those ones that probably will age better as we go on in time, or maybe not age better, but people will like it more. Um, and I feel like the Flash will kind of be like that too. But Yeah, the one of the problems with the movie, the Atlanta planet where they're singing with all the water, um, I think that they needed to commit a little bit more to that because it feels like a bit when you do it and then you give an excuse for the guy to stop singing. So you're like, oh, okay, so this was just a little bit thing that you did. Apparently, the scene was supposed to be a lot longer, which I think, even though some people probably would have hated, I think it needed to be longer or they needed to just keep them singing. Like, if that's the way the planet is, then make that the way it is. There's also the Flurkins eating all the people. I thought that was funny, but I do know that some people hate that part of the movie. And then the villain, who was played by Zawe Ashton, Darben. Darben was kind of forgettable. I think that if you had focused on, kind of fleshing out her character a little bit more, it would give you, the movie would have benefited from that. It would have been a lot better. Like, add 10 more minutes to this movie and kind of flesh out Darben a little bit more. Show us a little bit more than that one scene, where Captain Marvel goes and destroys the Supreme Intelligence, which in turn destroyed the environment of the planet. Show us a little bit more of the people struggling and Darben trying to, help the planet. Show us, that animosity that Darben has towards Carol Danvers. Put 10 more minutes in the movie with them on the planet so that we get a little bit more of that because then it hits better at the end. Um, you know, and but outside of that, of course, one of the standouts in the movie, of course, is Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel. Everybody loves Iman Vellani. I am one of those people. Can't give me enough of Iman Vellani. And I thought that Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, this is her best performance as Carol Danvers. I really liked it. There was a lot more emotion. The scenes that she had with Monica Rambeau, Tiana Paris, which Tiana Paris, oh my goodness, wow. Tiana Paris was amazing in this movie. She did really good. She was beautiful. Love Tiana Paris. But I think the scenes with Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau, because of the relationship that Carol Danvers had with Monica Rambeau's mother, and then how Carol Danvers left, and then Tiana Paris went through all that stuff with her mom that we saw in WandaVision. So yeah, I thought that relationship worked really well, and it was played really well. That was some of the better written stuff in the movie. I think they could have done a little bit more with that as well, to make the movie a little bit better. But yeah, overall, like I said, I give it a high C tier. I'm not as down on the Marvels as a lot of people are, and I think that over time, more people will come around more to the Marvels, kind of like they're doing with the original Thor movies and whatnot. But we'll see. And the last comic book movie of the year was recently released, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It came out December 22nd of 2023. It was directed by James Wan, who directed the previous Aquaman, which made $1 billion. And this one is probably not going to make anywhere near that. It was made on a $205 million budget, and the current box office as of the release of this video is around $130 million, which honestly is, for what the movie was tracking for, is not that bad. I think it will probably end, because of the Christmas season and people go out to see movies. I think it'll probably end around that $300 million range, which is not going to get them their money back. But maybe if it surprises and makes 400 or 500, then it'll be at least have made the money back. But yeah, we'll have to see. But the movie for me, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the last DCEU movie and the last comic book movie released this year, for me, I have it at a C tier, and I have it behind the Marvels. For me, the like the Marvels, this one feels like it's paced well. So if you don't like Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, at least it goes quick. But the standout in this movie was Patrick Wilson as Ocean Master Orm, Aquaman's brother. I think he was the standout in this movie. He did a really great job. Um, he's obviously one of probably the best actor in this movie. I don't know, Yahya Abdul Mateen would be up there with him, but they didn't give Black Manta really anything to do. He was being possessed the entire movie and just basically staring menacingly. So so he didn't really do anything in this movie. I think that it was kind of wasted. They wasted Yahya Abdul Mateen in the DCEU. in both his appearances. He's such a great actor. If you've seen The Watchmen or the show that he's in, I forget the name of the show, but yeah, he's a really good actor. And Lovecraft Country, that's the name of the show. Lovecraft Country, he's really great in that. um but yeah, he's a really great actor. And he's kind of wasted in this because he's being possessed. I think if he had just found the trident, and then it made him, because they needed to make him more powerful so he could fight Aquaman, because he's just a human, so he doesn't have powers. If he had just found the trident, and then the Necris, or whatever the person's name, I don't even remember the villain's name, and I just saw this movie a couple days ago. That's how bad it is. But yeah, the trident. If he had got the trident, and then he had entered into a pact with the villain instead of just being possessed by him, I think that would give him a little bit more agency as a character, while also you can power him up so he can fight Aquaman. Because it felt like he had no agency; he was being possessed when he had the trident. But yeah, Patrick Wilson was a standout in the movie. If you're wondering about Amber Heard, after all the Amber Heard Johnny Depp court case mess, they did their best to cut her out of this movie, but it's for the worse. If you're a DC fan like me, Mara is a really interesting character. Atlantis magic has always been interesting to me, and I love the characters that do magic in Atlantis. And so Mira, she's a really interesting character. If you watched the first Aquaman and then watched this and didn't know anything about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard stuff, you just watched the movies, you would be very confused as to where Mira was, because she had such a big role in the first movie. It was basically a buddy trip movie with him and Mira. And in this movie, she's barely in it. She shows up at the end to save him. She shows up a couple times in the middle. She basically shows up when she needs to, like the bare minimum. Um, but yeah, she doesn't really do that much. Doesn't say that much. She probably has, like, I would say maybe 5 or 6 lines of dialogue in this movie. Now I'm sure she had more, but then they did the reshoots and to cut her out and whatnot. So yeah, that was that. I thought that Jason Momoa as Aquaman, he was playing it up a little bit much. Like in the first movie, it was cool, and in the Justice League, it was cool. But in this movie, it was a little bit much. It was kind of like Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, it was doing a little bit too much. But I do like this more than Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought that, I do like his Arthur Curry. But yeah, there's just some issues with the writing, the motivations for the characters. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is wasted in this movie. So yeah, it's really unfortunate that this is how the DCEU went out. And then that post-credit scene could have really been a fun way to end to have a send off for the DCEU. But instead, they do like a joke post-credit scene that you don't even really need to stay for if you haven't seen the movie. It was funny, but it was in the greater context of the DCEU. It's unfortunate. Um, and but yeah, that is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. All right, and that is the final tier list for all 9 comic book movies that released this year. Let me know what you thought about the movies that released this year down in the comments below. I'm sure that some of you disagree with me on these because I'm a little bit higher on some of these than most of the critics are. But let me know what you thought about the movies that released down in the comments below. What was your favorite comic book movie of the year? And what did you think was not great? Make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more comic book and pop culture talk. And I will see y'all another day.